The Great Democratic Disaster. Part 1. The Accidental Campaign Manager. Nikhil Seth had exactly 3 talents in life: solving quadratic equations faster than a calculator, organizing his pencil case by color gradient, and making a complete fool of himself in front of Simone Singh. The third talent, unfortunately, was the one he practiced most frequently. "You've got something on your face," Simone said one Monday morning, pointing at her own cheek while looking at him with those devastating brown eyes. Nikhil's hand shot up to mirror her gesture, wiping frantically at his right cheek. "Other side," she said, suppressing a smile. He switched to his left cheek, now wiping both sides like a confused windshield wiper. "Actually, it's gone now," Simone laughed, already walking away down the Trinity High School corridor, her perfectly ironed uniform somehow looking effortlessly casual, while Nikhil's always looked like he'd slept in it, which, to be fair, he sometimes did. His best friend Rohan appeared beside him, shaking his head. "Smooth, Seth, really smooth. Next time, why don't you just lie down on the floor so she can walk all over you? Cut out the middleman." "Shut up," Nikhil muttered, adjusting his glasses and pretending to study the notice board with intense concentration. It was the same notice board he'd memorized weeks ago, including the passive-aggressive note from the librarian about returning books and the faded poster for last year's annual day that no one had bothered to take down. "Oh no," Rohan said, following his gaze. "Oh no, I know that look." "What look?" "That I'm going to do something idiotic in the name of love look. I've seen it before. It never ends well." But Nikhil wasn't listening. His eyes had fixed on a new poster, still smelling of fresh printer ink. "Trinity High School Presidential Elections. Nominations open. Be the change you want to see." And beneath it, in smaller print, "Campaign managers needed. See Mrs. Payne." "Kapoor in the activities room." "Rohan," Nikhil said slowly, "what if I told you I had a plan?" "I'd tell you to stop. Plans are bad. Your plans are specifically bad. Remember the Valentine's Day poetry incident? That was different. You accidentally submitted your love poem to the school newsletter instead of your English essay. The whole school read it. People still call you Romeo Seth Romeo. This is completely different. That's what you said before the Valentine's Day incident, and before the Christmas party incident, and before the, if you're not going to be supportive, you can leave." Rohan sighed, the long-suffering sigh of a friend who knew he was about to be dragged into something ridiculous, but was too loyal to abandon ship. "Fine, what's the plan?" "I'm going to be Simone's campaign manager." There was a long pause. "There are so many problems with that sentence, I don't even know where to start," Rohan said. "First, is Simone even running for president? Second, why would she choose you as her campaign manager? Third, you do realize you'd have to talk to her, right? In complete sentences, regularly?" Nikhil hadn't thought of any of these points. This was typical. His plans usually went, Step 1, have brilliant idea. Step 2, 3, win the girl. The 3 part always seemed to sort itself out in movies. "I'll convince her to run," Nikhil said with more confidence than he felt, "and then I'll make sure she wins." "You can't even convince the canteen guy to give you extra samosas." "That's because he's unreasonable." "He's unreasonable? You once tried to prove mathematically that you deserved more samosas because you'd calculated the optimal samosa to student ratio. The math was sound. The math was insane, just like this plan." But Nikhil was already walking toward the activities room, his mind spinning with possibilities. He'd spent 3 years at Trinity High School watching Simone from afar. Well, not afar exactly. She sat 2 rows ahead of him in advanced mathematics, 1 row diagonal in chemistry, and directly in his line of sight during morning assembly if he stood on his toes and craned his neck slightly to the left. Not that he'd calculated this or anything. Simone Singh was everything Nikhil wasn't: confident, articulate, effortlessly popular without seeming like she tried. She was captain of the debate team, ran the school's environmental club, and once made Mr. Desai, their notoriously grumpy history teacher, laugh during a presentation about the Mughal Empire. She was basically a superhero, if superheroes wore pleated skirts and had a habit of chewing on pen caps when they were thinking. And Nikhil had been in love with her since class 9, when she'd lent him a pencil during a surprise test and said, "Try not to stress, you're smarter than you think." He'd kept that pencil. It was in his desk drawer at home, in a special compartment, completely unused. Again, not weird at all. Part 2. The Pitch. Mrs. Kapoor, the school's activities coordinator, looked at Nikhil over her reading glasses with the expression of someone who dealt with teenage enthusiasm for far too long. "You want to be a campaign manager," she said flatly. "Yes, ma'am." "For whom?" "Simone Singh." "Has Simone agreed to run?" "Not yet, ma'am." "Has Simone agreed to have you as her campaign manager?" "Also not yet, ma'am." Mrs. Kapoor removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Mr. Seth, do you understand how elections work?" "Yes, ma'am. Candidates nominate themselves, campaigns happen, people vote, democracy prevails." "Democracy prevails," she repeated, sounding like she doubted this very much. "And you think you can convince Simone Singh to run?" "I have a very compelling argument prepared." "This I have to hear." Nikhil cleared his throat. He'd actually practiced this part in the mirror that morning, though his reflection had looked significantly more confident than he felt now. Trinity High needs a leader who actually cares about students, not just someone who wants it for their university applications. Simone already runs the environmental club. She's increased membership by 40%. She organized the successful campaign to get recycling bins in every classroom. And she once convinced the canteen to switch to biodegradable plates. She's literally already doing the job. She just doesn't have the title. Mrs. Kapoor was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a comforting smile. "That's actually not terrible reasoning, Mr. Seth, which worries me because I know you well enough to know that terrible reasoning usually follows. What's the real reason you want to do this?" Nikhil felt his face heat up. "I believe in her leadership capabilities." "And her vision for positive change." "And I think she's pretty, and I've been in love with her for 3 years, and this is literally the only way I can think of to spend time with her without making it weird," Nikhil blurted out. Rohan, who'd been lurking by the door, made a strangled sound that might have been a laugh or a cry for help. Mrs. Kapoor, to her credit, didn't seem surprised. "There it is." "But the stuff about her leadership is also true," Nikhil added desperately. "I'm not lying about that. She would be amazing. The best president Trinity High has ever had. I genuinely believe that." "And you'd be content to work behind the scenes? Campaign managers don't get much glory, Mr. Seth. You'd be making posters, organizing rallies, handling logistics, all while someone else stands in the spotlight." "I don't want the spotlight," Nikhil said honestly. "I just want to help her shine." This time, Mrs. Kapoor's smile was genuine, if slightly pitying. "That's either the sweetest or the saddest thing I've heard all week." "I haven't decided which." She pulled out a form. "Fine, here's the paperwork. You'll need Simone's signature agreeing to run and to have you as her campaign manager. You have until Friday. And Mr. Seth?" "Yes, ma'am?" "Try not to make it too weird." "No promises, ma'am." Part 3. The Proposal. Not that kind. Convincing Simone turned out to be harder than Nikhil had anticipated, which was saying something because he'd anticipated it being very hard. His first attempt was during lunch break. He'd prepared a whole speech, complete with statistics about student engagement and a PowerPoint presentation on his phone. He approached her table in the cafeteria where she sat with her friends, Priya, Arti, and Zara, who collectively had the power to destroy his social life with a single raised eyebrow. "Simone," he said, "can I talk to you about something?" She looked up from her plate of Rajma Chawal, surprised. "Nikhil? Sure. What's up?" This was it, his moment. He opened his mouth to deliver his carefully prepared speech. I think you should be president, he squeaked out, his voice hitting a pitch he didn't know he was still capable of reaching after puberty. Her friends exchanged glances. Simone's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. President of what? School, the school, Trinity High, our school, the presidential elections. Oh, she said slowly, I hadn't really thought about it. You should think about it. You'd be great, the best, amazing, phenomenal, other synonyms for excellent. Rohan, watching from a nearby table, had his head in his hands. Priya leaned forward. Nikhil Seth, isn't it? You're in our advanced math class. Yes, math, which is where Simone also is, because we're both there, in math, together, separately together. You know what I mean. I really don't, Priya said, but she was smiling. Simone, thankfully, seemed more amused than horrified. Why do you think I should run? This, at least, Nikhil had prepared for. He pulled out his phone with slightly shaky hands and brought up his PowerPoint. I made a presentation. You made a presentation about me running for school president? I made 2 presentations. This is the shorter one. The long one has embedded videos and custom animations. Zara snorted into her drink. Okay, Simone said, and her eyes were sparkling with something that might have been laughter but wasn't unkind. Show me. Nikhil took a breath and launched into it. And once he got past his initial nervousness, once he stopped thinking about how pretty Simone looked when she tilted her head to listen, the words came easier. He talked about her environmental initiatives, her debate team championships, her ability to actually get students excited about school activities. He showed her the survey he'd conducted, admittedly only of 20 people, mostly from his class, but still, that showed 75% of students would vote for her if she ran. You conducted a survey? Simone asked. I got really invested in this idea, Nikhil admitted. I can see that. She was quiet for a moment, studying his phone screen. Then she looked up at him. Why does this matter to you so much? This was the question Nikhil had been dreading. He couldn't tell her the real reason, that he'd been halfway in love with her since she'd smiled at him during that Class 9 test, that he noticed when she changed her shampoo because her hair smelled different, that he'd once walked 45 minutes out of his way just because she'd mentioned liking a particular bookshop and he'd wanted to see what it was like. All of that would definitely fall under making it weird. I think Trinity High deserves a president who actually cares, he said instead. Everyone else who's going to run, they just want it for their resumes. But you actually try to make things better. Remember when you got the school to install water fountains on every floor? Or when you organized that fundraiser for the municipal school? You do these things because you care, not because you're trying to impress anyone. That's what a leader should be. Simone's expression had shifted to something Nikhil couldn't quite read. Her friends had gone quiet too, watching their interaction with undisguised interest. And you'd want to be my campaign manager? Simone asked. If you'd have me, yes. You know campaigning is a lot of work, right? It's not glamorous. It's early mornings and late nights and dealing with printing shops and arguing with the activities committee about poster placement, and I color code my notes for fun. I reorganize my bookshelf by author and by publication date. Last month, I created a spreadsheet to optimize my study schedule down to 15-minute intervals. I live for this stuff. RT laughed. He's got you there, Sim. That's exactly your kind of crazy. I'm not crazy, Simone protested. I'm organized. You alphabetized your spice rack, Priya pointed out. That's just efficient. See, Nikhil said. You need someone who understands that alphabetizing spice racks is a sign of greatness, not insanity. Simone laughed, actually laughed, and Nikhil felt like he'd won something. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll think about it. Can you send me that presentation? Both versions? Let's start with the short one. I'll email it to you, or WhatsApp, or Bluetooth, or I could print it out. I could do a printed version with a spiral binding and maybe some color-coded tabs. Email is fine, Nikhil, Simone said, and she was definitely trying not to laugh again. He nodded and backed away from the table before he could say anything else embarrassing, which was already a lot. Rohan met him halfway across the cafeteria. That was painful to watch, Rohan said. But she didn't say no. She didn't say yes either. She said she'd think about it. That's basically a maybe. A maybe is half a yes. That's not how words work. I'm calling it a victory. You need higher standards for victory. Part 4. The Unlikely Alliance. Simone didn't give him an answer that day or the next. By Wednesday, Nikhil had convinced himself that she'd forgotten about their conversation entirely, that it had been filed away in her brain under weird interactions with that nervous kid from math class. Then she appeared at his desk during study period. "If I do this," she said without preamble, sliding into the empty seat beside him, "I need to know you're serious." Nikhil's heart attempted to escape his chest. I'm serious. I mean, really serious. Not, I think this'll be fun serious. We'd be going up against Armand Malhotra. Armand Malhotra was the school's golden boy, cricket team captain, academic achiever, and owner of perfect hair that somehow stayed perfect even during monsoon season. He'd been groomed for student leadership since Class 8, probably by a team of professional groomers. "Armand's running?" Nikhil asked. He announced this morning. He's already got half the cricket team campaigning for him, and his parents hired a professional designer for his posters. That's allowed? Technically, yes. It's not against the rules. Can we get his designer's number? Because that could be useful. Nikhil, focus. Right, sorry. Armand, what's his platform? Excellence, unity, tradition, whatever that means. It means he had a thesaurus and picked the 3 most important sounding words, Nikhil said. We can beat that. Can we, though? He's popular, he's got resources, and honestly, people love him. People like me, Simone corrected. There's a difference. I'm not the cheerleader type. I'm the girl who reminds everyone to recycle their plastic bottles. That's better than being the cheerleader type. Tell that to the voting population of Trinity High. Nikhil turned to face her fully, pushing his glasses up his nose in what he hoped was a serious campaign manager-like gesture. Simone, do you want to make a difference in this school? Obviously. And do you think you could do a better job than Armand, my hair is perfect, Malhotra? She smiled slightly. His hair is annoyingly perfect. So, do you think you'd be better? Honestly, yes. Yes, I do. Then that's all that matters. We'll figure out the rest. I'm good at figuring things out. It's literally my only skill besides overthinking and alphabetizing things. Simone studied him for a long moment. Why are you doing this, Nikhil? Really? Here it was again, the question he couldn't answer truthfully without ruining everything. Because someone should, he said simply, and I think that someone should be you. Is that not enough? She smiled, a real smile, not the polite one she gave to teachers or the social one she used in the cafeteria. Yeah, she said softly, that's enough. She pulled out the nomination form from her bag. It was already filled out, her signature neat at the bottom. So, campaign manager, where do we start? Nikhil tried very hard not to grin like an idiot. He failed completely. We start by understanding our base. We need to know who's going to vote for you and why, and then we need to figure out how to reach everyone else. You thought about this. I made a spreadsheet. Of course you did. Color-coded. Obviously. With multiple tabs. Nikhil. Yes? Show me the spreadsheet. Part 5. The campaign begins. And so it began, the strangest, most chaotic, most wonderful 2 weeks of Nikhil Seth's life. They set up campaign headquarters in the library's back corner, a spot that librarian Mrs. D'Souza reluctantly agreed to, provided they kept the noise down and returned all books to their proper places. Nikhil assured her that proper book placement was his religion. Their team assembled gradually. Rohan joined, mostly to keep Nikhil from doing anything too embarrassing, but also because he turned out to have a secret talent for graphic design. Simone's friends, Priya, Arti, and Zara, signed on, bringing with them crucial insight into various school social circles. The debate team will vote for you automatically, Priya announced during their first official campaign meeting. They're ride or die, but we need the sports crowd, and that's Armand's territory. What about the arts kids? Artie suggested. Drama, music, art club, they're a decent voting bloc. Simone doesn't really have a connection there, Zara pointed out. Neither does Armand, Nikhil said, typing notes into his laptop. That's a neutral zone. We could win them over. How? Simone asked. We talk to them, find out what they actually want from a school president, and then we promise to deliver it. Revolutionary concept, Rohan said dryly. A politician who asks people what they want? Wild. The first week was spent on research. Nikhil created surveys, proper ones this time, distributed to every class with questions about school policies, desired changes, and leadership qualities. He spent his evenings compiling data, creating charts, and texting Simone updates at increasingly late hours. Nikhil, 10 p.m. Found something interesting. 63% of students want longer lunch breaks, but 78% want more after-school activities. Seems contradictory, but actually reveals a desire for flexible scheduling. Simone, 10 p.m. It's almost 11 p.m. and you're analyzing survey data? Nikhil, is that weird? Simone, it's very weird, but also kind of impressive. Send me the full analysis tomorrow. Will do. Sorry for the late text. Simone, don't apologize. I'm up anyway, working on my platform speech. You're making me actually think about this stuff instead of just winging it. You'd be great even if you winged it. Thanks, Nikhil. See you tomorrow? See you tomorrow. Rohan, who'd witnessed this entire exchange while they video called about poster designs, shook his head on screen. You're texting her at night now, and she's responding. Do you realize how significant this is? We're discussing campaign strategy. You just told her she'd be great even if she winged it. That's just encouragement. Campaign managers encourage their candidates. Campaign managers who are totally not in love with their candidates, sure. Shut up and show me the poster designs. But Rohan was right, and Nikhil knew it. Something was shifting. He was spending more time with Simone than he'd ever imagined possible. They had inside jokes now, stupid things about Mrs. Kapoor's coffee addiction and the way Principal Sharma always adjusted his tie before making announcements. She'd started saving him a seat at campaign meetings. She asked his opinion on things. It was everything Nikhil had wanted, and somehow more terrifying than he'd expected. Part 6. The Opposition. Armand Malhotra's campaign was, in a word, slick. His posters were professionally printed on high-quality paper, featuring a photo of him in perfect lighting with the slogan, "Excellence in Action," in bold letters. He had campaign merchandise, actual badges and wristbands. His manifesto was printed in full color and distributed to every student. This is ridiculous, Artie said, holding up one of Armand's badges. What is this, a presidential election? Technically, yes, Nikhil pointed out. You know what I mean. It's high school. This is overkill. But effective overkill, Nikhil thought. Armand's campaign was everywhere. He gave speeches during lunch breaks, organized meet and greets, and had a presence at every school event. He was charismatic and confident, promising everything from better sports facilities to improved canteen food. We can't compete with his resources, Simone said, looking discouraged after seeing Armand's latest campaign video, which had production values that would make a Bollywood director jealous. We don't need to, Nikhil said. We compete with authenticity. Authenticity doesn't show up in 4K resolution with a soundtrack. No, but it shows up in conversations, in actual connections. Look, Nikhil pulled up his laptop, showing her the data he'd been compiling. Armand's campaign is broad. He's promising everything to everyone, which means he's not actually saying anything specific. But your platform is concrete. Longer lunch breaks with structured activities, a student feedback system for curriculum changes, monthly town halls between students and administration. These are real, achievable things. But are people excited about achievable things, or do they want the flashy promises? Depends on the people, which is why we're going grassroots. Grassroots. We can't outspend Armand, but we can outwork him. Personal connections, one conversation at a time. We make you accessible, real. Someone people can actually talk to, not just someone on a poster. Simone was quiet for a moment, studying the data. Then she looked at him with an expression that made Nikhil's heart do complicated gymnastics. You really believe we can win, don't you? I believe you can win, Nikhil corrected. I'm just helping. That's not true. You're not just helping. This whole thing, the strategy, the analysis, the late-night brainstorming sessions, this is you. You're the reason I'm even competitive. Nikhil felt his face heat up. I make spreadsheets. You're the one who has to actually convince people to vote for you. Yeah, but you're the one who figured out what to say to convince them. You're the one... She stopped, seeming to reconsider her words. You're a really good campaign manager, Nikhil. Thanks, he managed. I mean it. I'm glad you convinced me to do this. Even if we lose, I'm glad. We're not going to lose. She smiled. There's that confidence again. Where does it come from? You're all nervous and awkward about everything else, but when it comes to this campaign, you're suddenly Mr. Assertive. That's because it's not about me, Nikhil said honestly. When I have to talk about myself, my brain short circuits. But this is about you. And talking about you is easy because he caught himself just in time, because your qualifications are obvious, objectively speaking. Objectively speaking, Simone repeated, and there was something in her tone that Nikhil couldn't quite read. Part 7. The Debate. The official school presidential debate was scheduled for Friday, 1 week before elections. It would be held in the auditorium, moderated by Mrs. Kapoor, with the entire school in attendance. Nikhil spent the week before preparing Simone like she was training for the Olympics. They practiced responses to potential questions, ran through her key policy points, and prepared rebuttals for Armand's likely arguments. What if he brings up the fact that he's been class representative for 3 years? Simone asked during one of their prep sessions. Then you point out that being class representative and being school president are different scales of leadership, and your experience running the environmental club, managing budget, organizing events, coordinating volunteers, is actually more relevant preparation. What if he brings up his cricket captaincy? You congratulate him on his sports achievements and then pivot to talking about how you want to increase support for all extracurricular activities, not just sports. Make it about inclusion. What if he's just better than me, more polished, more presidential? Nikhil put down his note cards. Simone, look at me. She did. You are going to walk into that auditorium and you are going to be brilliant. Not because you're polished, but because you're real. You actually care about making this school better, and that's going to come through. People can tell the difference between someone who wants the position and someone who wants to do the work. You want to do the work. You really think that matters? I know it matters, and so do you, or you wouldn't have spent the last 3 years actually trying to improve things instead of just talking about it. She took a deep breath. Okay, you're right. Plus, Armand's hair is too perfect. It's suspicious. People will start wondering if it's a wig. That made her laugh, which had been the point. It's not a wig. We don't know that for certain. Has anyone actually touched it? Nikhil. I'm just saying, there's a lack of empirical evidence. You're ridiculous. But I made you stop panicking. She smiled. Yeah, you did. The night before the debate, Nikhil couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at his ceiling, mentally running through every possible scenario. What if he'd prepared her wrong? What if he'd missed some crucial angle? What if Armand had some surprise strategy they hadn't anticipated? His phone buzzed. 1 a.m. Are you awake? 1 a.m. Yeah, can't sleep. 1 a.m. Me neither, nervous. 1 a.m. You're going to be amazing, I promise. 1 a.m. How are you so sure? Because I've watched you convince Mr. Desai to smile. After that, a school debate is nothing. 1 a.m. Fair point. Thank you, Nikhil, for everything. Not just the campaign stuff, for believing in me. 1 a.m. Always. Now get some sleep. You need to be sharp tomorrow. 1 a.m. Yes, campaign manager. Good night. 1 a.m. Good night, Madam President. The debate day arrived with typical Mumbai weather. sunny, humid, and completely indifferent to human anxiety. Nikhil got to school early, checked the auditorium setup 3 times, and positioned himself in the front row where Simone could see him if she needed a friendly face. The auditorium filled quickly. Armand arrived with his entourage, all confidence and perfect hair. He was wearing a blazer. Who wore a blazer to a school debate? Simone arrived 5 minutes before start time, wearing her regular uniform, but somehow looking completely composed. She caught Nikhil's eye, and he gave her a thumbs up, which was probably dorky, but he didn't care. Mrs. Kapoor took the stage. Welcome to Trinity High School's presidential debate. Our candidates today are Armand Malhotra and Simone Singh. We'll have opening statements, followed by questions from the moderator and the audience, and closing statements. Candidates, are you ready? Armand nodded confidently. Simone took a breath and nodded too. Mr.
Malhotra, your opening statement. Armand's opening was smooth and rehearsed. All the right buzzwords about excellence, leadership, and taking Trinity High to new heights. It was impressive in its polish and utterly forgettable in its content. Then it was Simone's turn. I've been a student at Trinity High for 4 years, she began, and her voice was steady. And I love this school, but I also know we can do better. Not better in some vague, undefined way, but better in specific, practical ways. Better lunch options that don't run out by 12. Better communication between students and administration. Better support for clubs and activities that aren't sports. Better mental health resources for when we're struggling. She continued, laying out her platform point by point, concrete and achievable. Nikhil watched the audience. Students were actually listening, leaning forward, nodding. The Q&A session was where things got interesting. Question for both candidates, Mrs. Kapoor read from a submitted card. What makes you qualified to be student president? Armand went first, listing his achievements. Class representative, cricket captain, academic honors. It was an impressive resume. Simone's response was different. I'm qualified because I've been doing this work already, just without the title. I started the environmental club when I saw how much waste our school was producing. I organized the successful petition for better library hours because students needed more study space. I ran the fundraiser for the municipal school because I believe Trinity High should be part of the larger community, not separate from it. I don't want to be president to add something to my resume. I want to be president because I already care about this school and its students, and this position would let me do that work more effectively. Even Rohan, sitting next to Nikhil, whispered, Damn, that was good. Question from the audience, Mrs. Kapoor said. Rahul Sharma asks, what's your position on the proposed change to the exam schedule, which was a hot topic? The administration wanted to move midterms earlier in the semester, which most students opposed. Armand gave a diplomatic answer about understanding both perspectives and working toward compromise. Simone was more direct. I oppose the change. I've talked to students across all years, and the consensus is clear. Moving exams earlier doesn't give us enough time to learn the material properly. It's being proposed for administrative convenience, not student benefit. If elected, I'll formally present student opposition to the administration with specific data about why the current schedule works better. The auditorium erupted in applause. Armand looked slightly rattled. His next few responses were more defensive, less polished. Meanwhile, Simone was gaining momentum, answering questions with specificity and confidence. Then came the question that changed everything. This one's for Simone, Mrs. Kapoor said. Priya Desai asks, your opponent has more traditional leadership experience. Why should we trust someone who's never held an elected position before? It was a planted question. Nikhil could tell from Armand's satisfied expression. It was designed to highlight Simone's lack of formal credentials. Simone paused. For a moment, Nikhil worried she'd be thrown off. Then she smiled. That's a fair question, she said. Traditional leadership experience is valuable. But you know what else is valuable? Fresh perspective. Not being tied to how things have always been done. And honestly, some of the best work I've done for this school happened precisely because I wasn't in an official position. I didn't have to worry about politics or approval or tradition. I just saw problems and worked to fix them.
That's the kind of president I want to be. Someone who acts, not just someone who holds meetings about maybe possibly acting. The applause this time was deafening. Nikhil was pretty sure he was grinning like an idiot, but he didn't care. Simone was incredible. She was authentic and passionate and specific, everything they'd prepared for and more. Armand's closing statement was professional and forgettable. Simone's closing statement was simple. I'm not promising to be perfect. I'm not promising to fix everything overnight. I'm promising to actually listen, to actually work, and to actually care. That's all I've got. That's all I've ever had. And apparently, it's been enough to make a difference so far. If you trust me with your vote, I'll keep making that difference. Thank you. The auditorium exploded with applause again. As students filed out, chattering excitedly, Rohan grabbed Nikhil's shoulder. Dude, we might actually win this thing. She might actually win this thing, Nikhil corrected, but he was smiling. Simone found them in the crowd, her eyes bright. How did I do? Are you kidding? Arti said, arriving with Priya and Zara. You destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. Armand looked like he was going to cry when you answered that last question, Priya added gleefully. I wasn't trying to destroy anyone, Simone protested, but she was smiling. I was just being honest. That's why it worked, Nikhil said quietly. She looked at him. Thank you for preparing me. I couldn't have done that without your help. You could have, but I'm glad I could help anyway. There was a moment, just a brief one, where they stood there looking at each other while her friends chatted around them. A moment where Nikhil thought maybe, possibly, there was something in her expression that mirrored what he felt. Then someone called Simone's name, and the moment passed. Part 8. The Final Push. The last week before elections was chaos. Good chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Simone's debate performance had shifted the race. Suddenly, they had momentum. Students who'd been undecided were approaching Simone in hallways, asking questions, expressing support. The environmental club rallied behind her. The library club? Yes, Trinity High had a library club, consisting of 6 very dedicated readers, officially endorsed her. Even some of the sports kids were wavering. But Armand's campaign wasn't giving up. They doubled down on their messaging, put up more posters, organized a rally. It was going to be close. We need something big for the final push, Priya said during a campaign meeting. Something memorable. Like what? Simone asked. A rally? A video? Flash mob? Please, no flash mob, Nikhil said. I have secondhand embarrassment just thinking about it. What about a town hall? Rohan suggested. Like an actual open forum where anyone can come and ask Simone questions. Show that she's accessible. That's good, Nikhil said, typing notes. We could do it during lunch, in the cafeteria courtyard. Make it casual but substantive. What if no one shows up? Simone asked. They'll show up, Arti said confidently. After that debate, everyone wants to talk to you now. They scheduled the town hall for Wednesday, 2 days before the election. Nikhil spent Tuesday night preparing talking points and potential questions, though Simone insisted she didn't need them. I'm just going to be myself, she said when he tried to go over his notes. I know, but Nikhil. She put her hand on his, stopping his nervous note shuffling. I've got this. You've prepared me for everything. Trust that the preparation worked. Her hand was still on his. Nikhil's brain short-circuited momentarily. Right, he managed. Yes, trust. I can do that. She smiled and pulled her hand back, leaving Nikhil's skin feeling strangely cold where her fingers had been. The town hall was supposed to start at 1 p.m. By 12, the cafeteria courtyard was packed. Students were sitting on the ground, standing along the edges, even watching from the second-floor corridor overlooking the space. This is insane, Simone whispered to Nikhil. Why are there so many people? Because they want to hear what you have to say, Nikhil said. Now go say it. Simone stepped up onto the low platform they'd set up, borrowed from the drama club, and definitely not approved by any official channels. She didn't have a microphone, those required permits, but her voice carried clearly in the courtyard. Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I know you probably have better things to do than listen to me talk during lunch, so I'll make this quick. I'm Simone Singh, I'm running for school president, and I'm here to answer any questions you have. And I mean any questions. About my platform, about my qualifications, about why my hair looks like this today. She gestured to her slightly frizzy ponytail, earning laughs. Whatever you want to know, ask. A hand went up immediately. What's your position on the dress code? I think it's outdated and unnecessarily strict, especially for girls. If I'm elected, I'll propose revisions that prioritize comfort and practicality while maintaining appropriate standards. Another hand. Can you actually change anything, or is this all just talk? Honest answer, the student president doesn't have unlimited power. I can't unilaterally change school policy, but I can advocate, I can organize student input, and I can push administration to actually listen to that input. Will I be able to fix everything? No. Will I try anyway? Absolutely. More hands. Questions about exams, about canteen food, about school events, about mental health resources. Simone answered each one directly, sometimes admitting she didn't know but would find out, sometimes laying out specific plans. At one point, someone asked, "What makes you better than Armand?" Simone paused.
I don't think I'm better than Armand. He's accomplished and smart and would probably be a fine president. But I think I'd be a different kind of president. One who prioritizes action over image. One who cares more about actually getting things done than about how it looks on a resume. You all have to decide which kind you want. I'm just here to offer an option. Even Nikhil, who'd heard her practice responses for weeks, was impressed by how natural she sounded. This wasn't rehearsed or polished. This was just Simone being herself, and it was working beautifully. The town hall ran for an hour, well past lunch period. Students stayed, engaged, asking questions and listening to responses. By the time it ended, Nikhil was convinced, absolutely convinced, that they were going to win. That was incredible, he told Simone as they cleaned up. It felt good, she admitted. Just talking to people, being honest, no script, no strategy, just conversation. That was the strategy, Nikhil pointed out. Be yourself. I told you it would work. You did. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Nikhil, can I ask you something? Of course. After the election, whether I win or lose, will things go back to normal with us? Nikhil's heart did a complicated thing. What do you mean? I mean, we've spent so much time together these past few weeks, working on the campaign, and I've really... She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. I've really enjoyed it, getting to know you. You're different than I expected. Different how? Funnier, smarter. I mean, I knew you were smart. Everyone knows you're smart. But you're smart in this practical, applicable way that's really impressive. And thoughtful. You notice things. You notice when I'm nervous or tired or need to laugh. I didn't expect that. Nikhil's mouth had gone dry. It's easy to notice things about you. Is it? Yeah, because this was it. The moment.
He could say it. He could finally tell her the truth about why he'd convinced her to run, why he'd spent weeks planning her campaign, why he noticed everything about her. Because you're the candidate, his mouth said instead, like a coward. Campaign managers are supposed to notice these things. Something flickered in Simone's expression. Disappointment? But it was gone so quickly that Nikhil couldn't be sure. Right, she said. Of course. Campaign manager stuff. Simone? I should go. Artie wanted to run through some stuff before tomorrow. See you later? Yeah, see you. She left, and Nikhil stood there mentally kicking himself. Rohan appeared from wherever he'd been lurking. You are the biggest idiot I've ever met, Rohan said. I know. She was literally giving you an opening, practically engraved an invitation. I know. Campaign manager stuff. What is wrong with you? I don't know, Nikhil groaned. I panicked. What was I supposed to say? I notice things about you because I've been in love with you since class 9 would have been a good start. I can't tell her that before the election. It'll make everything weird. What if she feels uncomfortable? What if it affects her campaign? What if she feels the same way and you're just too chicken to find out? Nikhil was quiet.
You've spent weeks working to make her win, Rohan said, more gently now. Maybe spend a little time working on your own happiness, too. Part 9. Election Day. Election Day arrived with the kind of beautiful weather that felt mocking when you were internally screaming. Voting would happen during morning break and lunch, with results announced at the end of the day. Nikhil voted first thing, for Simone, obviously, and then spent the rest of the morning in a state of anxious uselessness. He couldn't focus in classes, he checked his phone every 30 seconds despite having nothing to check, he reorganized his pencil case 3 times. You need to relax, Rohan said during break.
You're making me anxious, and I'm not even that invested. What if we lose? Then Simone loses the election but gains a friend who clearly cares about her a ridiculous amount, which, might I point out, is also a win. That's not helpful. I'm trying here. Simone found them at lunch. She looked surprisingly calm. How are you doing? She asked Nikhil. Terrible. You? Weirdly okay. I did everything I could. Now it's up to everyone else. She sat down next to them. Nikhil, whatever happens today, I want you to know that this whole experience has been... I'm really glad you convinced me to do this. Even if you lose? Even if I lose. I learned a lot about the school, about leadership, about what I'm capable of, and about you. Me? Yeah, I learned that you're kind of amazing, in a very specific, organized, spreadsheet-loving way. Rohan made a noise that sounded suspiciously like, oh my god, just kiss already. What? Simone asked. Nothing, Rohan said quickly. I said, oh my god, I need to get food. I need food. From over there. Far away from here. He fled, leaving Nikhil and Simone alone. Your friend is weird, Simone said. He's dealing with a lot right now, Nikhil said. By which I mean me. He's dealing with me. Simone laughed. Then she looked at him seriously. Nikhil, yesterday when I asked if things would go back to normal after the election, I know I gave you a stupid answer. No, let me finish. I don't want things to go back to normal. Normal was us barely talking, me not knowing how funny you are, not having someone who cares about my ideas enough to make spreadsheets about them. I like this new normal. I want to keep it. Nikhil's heart was doing acrobatics. As friends? Well, yeah, at least as friends. But also, she took a breath. Nikhil, are you really this oblivious, or are you making me spell it out? Spell what out? I like you, you idiot. I like you as more than my campaign manager. I've liked you for weeks now. Maybe. I don't know exactly when it started, but somewhere between your color-coded notes and your midnight text messages and the way you believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, I started liking you. A lot. The world seemed to stop. Or maybe Nikhil's brain stopped. It was hard to tell. You like me? He managed. Yes. Like me? Is that the technical term? But yes. But you're Simone Singh. You're perfect. I'm really not. And I'm me. I'm the kid who gets nervous talking to people and reorganizes his bookshelves for fun and once accidentally wore his shirt inside out for an entire day. That was one time, and I thought it was endearing. You noticed that? Nikhil, I notice everything about you too. Why do you think I kept asking you to stay late at campaign meetings? Why do you think I texted you at midnight? I was looking for excuses to talk to you. But when? How? I've liked you since class 9. You've what? Oh, Nikhil's face was definitely bright red now. Did I not mention that? No, you definitely did not mention that. Right. Well, surprise. I've been completely, embarrassingly in love with you for 3 years. That's why I convinced you to run. Well, not just because of that, you really would make an amazing president, but that's why I put in all the extra work. Because he took a breath. Because I love you, have loved you, am currently loving you, all the tenses. Simone was staring at him.
Then she started laughing. "This is not the reaction I was hoping for," Nikhil said. No, it's just, we're both idiots. We've both been pining for each other while working on this stupid campaign, and neither of us said anything. To be fair, I was planning to tell you after the election. I didn't want to make things weird before." She kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or movie perfect. It was a quick press of lips in the middle of a crowded school cafeteria, over the smell of samosas and the sound of student chatter. But it was perfect anyway. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Still worried about making things weird? A little bit, yeah. Good, me too. We'll be weird together. "Finally!" Rohan's voice carried across the cafeteria. He was standing by the lunch line, making exaggerated celebratory gestures. "Do you know how painful it's been watching you two?" The entire cafeteria was staring now. Simone laughed and hid her face in her hands. Nikhil was pretty sure he'd never been more embarrassed or more happy in his entire life. "Well," Simone said, still laughing, "so much for keeping a low profile." "Too late now," Nikhil said, "but for what it's worth, totally worth it." Part 10. Results. The results were announced at 3 p.m. in the auditorium. Nikhil sat with Rohan, his leg bouncing nervously despite Simone's hand finding his in the dark and squeezing gently. Principal Sharma took the stage. "Thank you all for participating in our democratic process. We had an impressive turnout. 82% of eligible students voted. Both candidates ran excellent campaigns, but only one can serve as your next student president." The pause felt eternal. "By a margin of 57% to 43%, your next Trinity High School president is Simone Singh." The auditorium erupted. Simone's friends were screaming, Rohan was jumping up and down, and Simone, perfect, amazing Simone, turned to Nikhil with tears in her eyes. "We won," she said. "You won," he corrected. "No, we. I couldn't have done this without you." "Well, technically." She kissed him again, right there in front of everyone, and Nikhil decided that technically didn't matter at all. Later, after the celebrations, after Arman had graciously conceded and shaken Simone's hand, after Mrs. A. Kapoor had given them both a knowing look that said, "I told you it would be weird," Nikhil and Simone found themselves back in their library corner. "So," Simone said, "I'm going to be president. You're going to be amazing at it. And we're what exactly are we?" "Well, I'm still hopelessly in love with you, if that helps clarify things." She smiled. "It does, actually. And I'm officially falling for my campaign manager, which seems like a conflict of interest." "Former campaign manager," Nikhil pointed out. "My job is technically done." "Is it, though? Because I'm going to need help. Someone organized and thoughtful who makes really good spreadsheets." "Are you asking me to be your presidential advisor?" "I'm asking you to be my boyfriend who also happens to advise me on presidential things, if you want." "If I want," Nikhil repeated, like the answer wasn't the most obvious thing in the world. "Simone Singh, I organized an entire political campaign just for an excuse to spend time with you. I think it's safe to say I want." "Good," she said, and kissed him again. Outside, Trinity High School continued its usual chaos. Students rushing to catch buses, teachers grading papers, the cricket team practicing for their next match. But in their corner of the library, Nikhil Seth and Simone Singh had found something better than any election victory. They'd found each other. And while Nikhil would absolutely make spreadsheets to help Simone be the best president Trinity High had ever seen, color-coded with multiple tabs, he'd also learned something important. Sometimes the best campaigns aren't about winning. They're about discovering what you're really fighting for along the way. Though winning definitely didn't hurt. Epilogue. 3 months later, Simone kept every promise she'd made during her campaign. Trinity High had a student feedback system, improved mental health resources, and lunch periods that actually made sense. And Nikhil? He kept his position as the unofficial presidential advisor, chief spreadsheet maker, and official boyfriend of the most amazing girl at Trinity High School. Rohan, for his part, never let either of them forget that he'd been the one to facilitate the whole thing by forcing Nikhil to actually do something about his crush. "I'm basically Cupid," he said at least once a week. "You're basically annoying," Nikhil would respond. But he was also right. Sometimes all you need is a friend willing to push you toward the person you're meant to be with. And maybe a really good spreadsheet. Definitely a good spreadsheet.